I wanted to show you guys my mink pen setups. I got stuff all over it. Let me move that. Okay, this is my simple mink cage. This is what I consider the bare minimum for a cage for a mink. You see, it's got a main little cage portion. It's real small, and you've got the board up here for shelter. Tip it off. You have a little nest box with some bedding in it, and that's the omba in there. And this little main cage part, you have a run that leads from the cage to the water, the little swimming pool. And I have this plastic roof on top of the swimming pool for two reasons. The number one reason, well, three reasons. The number one reason is to keep stuff out of it. So like leaves, dust, just kind of stuff that could fall into it. Especially if it's near a tree, leaves will just fill it up real quick. But the second reason, which is close to being just as important, is to keep the water cool. Sitting in the sun, this water heats up real hot, and it's not very pleasant to swim in, and it doesn't help to cool the mink off. And that's part of the reason of having the pool, is not just entertainment for the mink and exercise, it's also to help keep the mink cool in the heat of the summer. And the third reason is also, if you've got it sitting in the sun all day, algae grows real bad in these tanks, because the sun gives it, sunlight helps plants grow, and well, algae is a plant. So it cuts down on the algae, keeps the water much, much cooler than it would be otherwise, and it also keeps it cleaner. You got to change these at least once a week, twice a week preferably. Every other day would be ideal. Pouring this out and refilling it not only keeps it clean, but also keeps mosquito larvae from growing in there, and so you don't have mosquitoes all over your yard. So Theoma's doing a good little demonstration of how much she enjoys her swimming pool. Swimming around there, Theoma? Having fun? Okay. So that's what I consider the bare minimum for a cage. Oh, and that funny little thing hanging down, if you're wondering what that is, that's just a toy. It's a rubber, what do you call it, bungee cord, and she hangs on that and plays with it. So anyway, that's that. So this slides in here. If you notice, it's not connected. I could slide this out or slide it in, and that makes it easy so I could change the water. So if it's hard to change the water, you're going to get lazy and not change it as often, which isn't good. So I just slide this out, tip it over, dump it all out, refill it up, slide this back in, and away we go. And it's too hard for the mink to slide back in itself. And same with here. This is just slid in a hole. It's not connected directly. Now, you may wonder about the wood and wire bottom. Why does it have a raised wire bottom and a solid wood bottom in the same cage? Well, mink running back and forth can sore their feet up if all they have to run on is wire. So I have a solid bottom. Well, then you may ask, well, why did you bother raising it? Why don't you just put it on the ground, then the whole thing is solid? Well, you see it's a little black stuff down there. It's kind of hard to see, sorry. That's mink poop. See, she knows if she poops on that side, she doesn't have to, what, you gonna play with me through the wire, huh? She doesn't have to mess with all her poop. She doesn't have to walk in her own poop. So she poops there, and it takes a little training with some mink to get the idea, but once they're trained, they go out, poop there, and they walk here. What I do to start out with when I'm training a mink to the cage is I don't have any wood. I let the mink create a habit of where it's pooping and where it's walking. So it's in the cage for a few days, maybe a week, maybe a little more than a week, not much more than that. And once they've created a habit of pooping in one place and walking in another, I place boards where the mink walks, and I leave it open where the mink poops. If the mink happens to poop and walk in the same place, I leave a hole or a gap where so the mink can poop through the wire. And I leave a bunch of poop under the wire so that once I put the boards up, so the mink keeps pooping in the same place. Because where they smell their droppings, they like to keep going. So if you see, this whole thing has a solid bottom so she can run comfortably on her feet. It doesn't hurt her feet. And you see here, it's lifted because a lot of mink, some of them will just poop in one place, but most of them will poop in multiple places. This is her second latrine here. So this is all lifted off the ground. You see it's up off the ground. And that's so that she can poop through the wire, keeps it clean. It makes it easy to clean the cage, but more importantly, even if you're cleaning the cage twice a day, she's going to be walking in her own poop eventually. If you have it this way, you could leave it for 3-4 weeks without cleaning it, and it's still totally sanitary. The mink never comes in contact with its own droppings. So, not recommending to leave it for 2 or 3 weeks, but if you did, it's just as sanitary as if you clean it every day, because the mink never comes in contact with its own filth. So yeah, that's the most basic cage, and you've got this here, of course, for shelter, both from the sun, and this time of year, sun's the most important thing to shelter a mink from, and from you know, rain and snow in other times of year. Being in the desert, we don't really have much rain in the summer, so. Okay, this is the elaborate cage. This is my preference for cages, and this is got a big walk-in sized cage. See here, I've had this cage for years. It's big enough I can walk around in there and train a new mink. That's why it's so tall. The tallness is really for me to go in and be able to train a mink in it. And if you see, it has the same principle. This mink's been in this cage for several weeks, so I know where it poops and where it walks. Where it walks, there's boards, and where it poops, there's no boards. See, it's open, and there's mink poop down there. So, I built this cage originally so it was on the ground, but, you know, even when you're cleaning the cage once or twice a day, the ground underneath it gets filthy from their urine and the little bit of poop you don't scrape up, and it's hard to clean through the wire. And so I raised this cage up this time. For years I've had this always on the ground, but I've just got sick of it. It's not as sanitary as I'd like it to be. So I raised it by putting pallets under the cage, and so it's got the same idea. It's raised where the mink poops, and it's solid where the mink walks. That way it doesn't get sore up its feet. And if your mink's just walking in one area, you don't have to have all these boards. You could have one board that goes right along their favorite little trail, 2 boards maybe, and that's it. Well, I put a few extra boards because I had some laying around, and I know where he poops, so it's pretty predictable. So I put him lots of places. Now you see there's lots of fun things in this cage. Yeah, Tate's doing a good demonstration there of his toy. I have a little hanging duck he can wrestle with and play with on his own when he's not out and interacting with me and exercising and hunting and such and so forth. So he can entertain himself a little bit with that toy. And preferably I'd hang it from something that's bungee that'll stretch and give, but I don't have one readily available, so I just tied it to a string, and that works well, as you can see. Tate's playing with it. The key is for it to be off the ground, high enough that the mink has to stand to wrestle with it. If it's just laying on the ground, it's not near as interesting as it is kind of dangling, so the mink can wrestle with it. You see I've got a little hammock. You can go buy a ferret hammock from the store, or better yet, make your own out of an old sweatshirt or jacket. Why that's better is, see those sleeves hanging down? They serve a dual purpose entertainment. The mink can wrestle with those sleeves just like he's doing with that little duck. But also, they love to shoot down the sleeves. They use it like a little tunnel. They'll climb up the side, jump in the hammock, and scoot down the sleeves. They love it. They think it's so much fun. It's up high, you know, so that he gets more exercise. If you notice, I do everything I can to encourage the mink to move around the cage. Here is his water. They've got this run here, and of course I've got the lid on it, or the little roof on it, so that it stays cool and all the things I described before. But see, here's his little swimming pool, and mink love to swim. Hold on, let's get that ball in there. So he's got his little, it's not really a ball, it's actually a bobber with rattle in it, but he loves playing with it. That's his little toy. It's a cool little invention I just barely came up with a couple weeks ago. This is what I call the soft pole. All it is a thick, soft rope. Now mink, it depends on the one, but it's really common for them to try and escape through the door, and when they want out, some mink will grab the wire with their teeth and pull on it. Well, as you can imagine, that's not very good on their teeth. the metal on enamel just wears their teeth out quicker than it would normally. And so I put this little soft rope. Oh, you're going to demonstrate it for us that day? Here, show us how you want to get out. You pull on the little string. Anyway, he will come and grab the wire with his teeth and pull really hard. It always worries me it's going to hurt their teeth. Some mink do this to obsession, to the point of obsession. Some do it occasionally, and some never do it. Well, this mink does it really bad, tate. And I learned when I was walking over to this corner, over here where his hammock is, he would follow me, and then he'd try and get out of the cage wherever I was, and he'd grab the wire in his teeth and pull on it. Well, actually over here he didn't do that. He'd come to the hammock and he'd grab the soft hammock and he'd start pulling on it. And I realized, oh hey, I could put something over by the door that would keep him from pulling on the wire, something soft. So I made this little, what I call a soft pull, kind of a random stupid name, but anyway, that's what I call it. Soft pull. All it is a little rope strung through, so when he wants to get out, he pulls on this, which is not very damaging to his teeth at all, compared to the hard wire on his enamel. So it's a great thing for their cage. Some mink don't do it in their cage, they only do it in the carry box. Same idea. Tie this to the front wire door of their carry box, and they can pull on this all day long without hurting their teeth. And yeah, it's a cool little idea I came up with. Thanks to Tate. You taught me that idea, huh, little man? So Tate came up with the idea, not me. I don't know why I'm getting credit for it. I just noticed it. So yeah, that's all I got to show you.